the idea that you could buy something that it wouldn't make you happier, like what? Like, how is that? Or the idea that you could want something and believe in your heart that you wanted something, then get it and not feel any better for it, because we're so flooded with external inputs that we're not even sure we're not sure what we want anymore, because so much of what we want is information fed to us.
Welcome to We Need to Talk, where we try to figure out how to find fulfillment in life and how to reduce dissatisfaction. Listen to the whole episode if you want to hear us talking about what we even want out of life and whether life is even worth it, and we would want to bring children into this world of chaos and turmoil. We also discuss what the core root of environmental destruction might be, that it potentially lies within the individual who is dissatisfied and confused and then sort of releases its dissatisfaction onto the environment and destroys the environment. We finally talk about how we have this tendency to fill the emptiness within us by sedating our thoughts, by listening to music, basically blocking and sort of numbing ourselves to our feelings and emotions because they're just quite painful to listen to, and it's very uncomfortable, let's say. So if you want to hear about that, listen to the full episode, enjoy it, and don't forget to subscribe. Let's go.
What do you actually want out of life?
I think in terms of things that I want to manifest in part in my life, I would like to spend a lot of my time, whether I'm successful or not, working towards some like sustainability, towards mitigating climate change, making it so that we have a better future to hand down to our children than the one that we're currently expecting to give to them. Because for me, one of the reasons that I'm not sure I want children is because I'm not sure that I can do that. I'm not sure that in 10 years' time, I'm not sure now, and I'm not sure in 10 years' time that the existence that I would be giving to my children is one that I would want them to have. And I think every parent needs to be confident that they can give their children a good life.
Based on your capabilities of parenting or the environment they would be in?
Based on the environment, the economy, the economy, like conflict, food, prosperity. I think that's a bit of a, I think I don't mean to be overly pessimistic. I think it comes partly from that place, but also partly from, if I have kids, I want it to be a net good on the world. Although overpopulation isn't the reason that we have climate change, it's lifestyle. It can't, people born in the West, in developed countries, have a disproportionate effect on the planet, in terms of the impact. I think it's a massive shame to be of this opinion. I don't like having this opinion, but honestly, if I don't believe that my child will have a good life and that my child would do more good than harm, then the rationale to have a child comes down to biology, to me wanting to experience fatherhood, to whoever my partner ends up being, to experience motherhood. And that seems quite a selfish thing to do, even though I think it would be a shame to experience an existence, to know that I would be a good father to my child or children. That's a real shame, but it's the way that I feel about that, I suppose. And if I can do things within my power to make the world a better place, then that helps me in that way. I suppose my ultimate, then what that comes down to is that I guess my ultimate was a goal in life.
What do you want out of life?
I want to be loved and to give love. If we, you know, and I think that you can define love in lots of different ways. I think that's kind of an encompassing answer.
I understand where you're coming from with your argumentation. I have a different perspective, but I mean, that's fine. When you say love, wait, I quickly need to swap now my mic because my computer's about to die. The thing with love, can you explain the psychology behind that? Because I mean, what jumped to my mind is you want the experience of life to be kind of like worth living, and that is what love does. Or is that wrong what I'm saying?
I mean, I suppose, yeah. I want life to be worth willing and fulfilling, and right now, I'm not really sure what me being fulfilled looks like in terms of. I think, art, like an artist might find creating art to be the most fulfilling, and maybe they would want to share their art with the world, or a great designer would want to build designs that people like build like the perfect design. Maybe an engineer would want to design design electric vehicles, or design an electric vehicle that would be affordable enough for everybody to have. But I think these are all very materialized desires. Ultimately, I think the vehicle doesn't matter if the destination to your goal doesn't matter if your overall goal is the same in that way. Like it depends on your skills as a person, like what you're good at as a person. But ultimately, I think people do things because they care about human beings, because they want other human beings to, you want other human beings to experience life in a positive way and not a negative way. And if you can improve that, if you can contribute towards the reduction of human suffering, then I guess you're doing that out of love. And I think living in like kind of a one way flow where you're just throwing stuff out of the world and people are benefiting from it, but actually you're not experiencing that joy back, I think is also a terrible existence. And I think you kind of want to experience it from both ways. So love's quite abstract. Love is quite an abstract thing, in the context that I've just spoken about. Your question was explain love from a psychological point of view.
It was, I was trying to, because when I asked the question, what do you want out of life? I've tried to deconstruct what that question really means, and whether one can sort of build a sort of I mean, this is dangerous when I say this, but like a generalizable pattern that people tend to use to find an answer to that question, like what they come up with. And I think one tends to, the answer might, this is basically what I've learned from Jordan Peterson and stuff, but I've tried to like process it myself and see if it's valid or not. But it's one seeks an answer that makes you want to actively live life, like that you actually like, I don't know how to explain it, but what I was reflecting and I realized, just tell me how much time you have. Like,
actually, Henry, I'm feeling quite good. So if you want to
Cool.
take a bit longer, that's fine.
Awesome. Okay. I have rarely ever in my entire life actively wanted to live life. And what I mean by that is where you have this mindset of there is something awesome which I can find and achieve. I just need to go and get there, and let me go and get there now. Like where you actively say like, I want to live life because this thing I'm aiming for or this thing I'm experiencing is so awesome. Like this game, dude, it's like, it's pretty cool, you know? I've almost never had that apart from, I would say, the last few months or the last year maximum. And that is what I'm aiming for, is to experience that mindset where I'm like, dude, like there's something in here. There's something I can sense. There's something here that's cool. And most people don't live like that. They live life where they get out of bed and they sort of commence with this sort of uphill challenge, this permanent uphill challenge where it's like, did I really choose to live? I was kind of born. It was involuntary, like, let's just do this, you know? Like, I think a lot of people live like that. And what one should find is that thing that makes you want to live life actively.
Yeah. Finding the thing that God or whatever, you know, or luck or biology designed you specifically, you, not anybody else, to pursue and to do your purpose. I think, you know, that kind of connects with the original purpose of Extraordinary Life, I think. I would say that I think if I could reach that point in my life where I knew that every day I was absolutely sure about everything that I was doing, that the reason I was, you know, I was working towards a goal, I was enjoying the process of working towards it, the outcome was something that I genuinely wanted, you know, I think that it would be impossible to not be satisfied in life. If you know, you have the goal, you have the journey, and you know, when you enter flow state, that's a good indication of you being in that direction. You know, I think that for a lot of people, that's finding your calling's quite a high, it's a tall order, and you know, I think inherently we live in a world that isn't really designed to help you find your calling. It's designed to help you find something that's good enough so that you join the machine that keeps the world turning, in a like an economic sense, and I think that's a shame. And you know, I'm not there now. There are very few times in my life where I feel invigorated to wake up every day, to be alive, to, you know, where I feel like I'm doing exactly what I'm meant to be doing, and everything's perfect. Maybe that seems like it contradicts my earlier answer. I'm going to try and think of a way to bridge those two.
Dude, you don't have to justify anything. Like,
no, I think it's I think it's important to have an answer to that question, because I think what it comes down to I think in life you're driven by a vision. So I mean, I've got a sheet of paper above my laptop that says, "Why am I doing this?" referring to my master thesis. So it says, for my own self-respect, learning new skills. That's a bullshit one. I should get rid of that. Self-management, to prevent climate change, to protect vulnerable communities, to gain my independence, to give a better world to future generations. I think, you know, I think the problem with just doing something that it might be easy to find something that gives you flow state, but what then if when you sit back at the end of the day, you're like, I had a good day at work, but actually what am I achieving? What is the end goal? I think for me personally, I'm very interested in music and singing, but that's not an easy life. There's a lot that goes into that. Like, I think generally musicians are people think that professional musicians lead really great lives, but if you look at the musicians that kill themselves, that take drugs, they're not totally fulfilled by their creativity. And I wouldn't say that this is the answer, but I think maybe the problem with music is that music can be for the, where does that fit into your vision for the world? You could argue that music is sharing joy or giving people an escape, but how is that concretely made? Could you in theory be replaced by anybody else? Or so for instance, for me, how could I be a professional musician and make any positive difference to climate change? Touring the world, flying a lot, burning CO2, encouraging people to travel, all of these things. It can't just be one thing. Everything, all parts of the puzzle have to fit together in finding that fulfillment.
But the difficulty with that mindset is that you are trying to quantify your effect on the world when I don't think we have the ability to net your influence. Because I would say, as a musician, let's say you're encouraging people to come out to your venue to see you perform with their car, and they're sort of releasing emissions like that. However, I think artists and for example, musicians, they tap into a realm of themselves, of their psychology, that others struggle to tap into, and then they formulate this information about their nature, about their biology, in a way that resonates with other people and helps them understand about themselves. And the value in that is tremendous, because when you say, it helps people find an escape, what is happening is that's one way of explaining it. But what's really occurring is the music is helping people process the confusion they have and the suffering that they experience. And that's immense, right? I mean, and of course it's super hard to quantify and say how am I changing the world here? But
because
complex.
I think, when you equate it back to human suffering, why do we care about climate change? I mean, it comes back to
I have
human suffering.
Some other ideas, but go ahead.
Sure. Like you could immediately think back to counteracting human suffering. It's still a humanitarian act. I think, I'm not sure if these are the sorts of questions that you find trying to. I guess I will let you know when I find something. Mm-hmm. I'm still looking, man. But
well,
I think that's.
Yeah.
I was going to say, I think that's the problem with university, that you pursue down a path, and even though you become disillusioned with it, there's so much invested in, and it's so important to. It's generally quite important to keep following that path. Like, you can't just drop out of university because you've realised that, or maybe you want to do this thing, because you could change your mind.
For sure. And at our age, the amount of times you change yourself across, between the age of 18 and 30, it's too much to sort of change your trajectory in life every time you change. But I want to hear what you think about this. I honestly think the root of climate destruction is actually the core of it lies within the psychology of the individual. The citizens of the world are just, something's wrong. And the way you solve it is by solving the psychology of the individual, by helping them fix themselves.
I think that's a I think that's a psychology-based answer for a problem that's not necessarily just based on psychology and not necessarily just based on technology. I mean, so there are different stages. There are different levels that you can subtract climate change through. So what I guess we're talking about in terms of psychological sense is that people have a way of behaving that is causing climate change, a way that either, I don't think that I think you could argue that in some ways we're kind of born that way, and in some ways we've been made that way. So would you, I guess you would have to agree on what factors are causing that in the psychological sense. So consumerism, competition, I hate to say competition, but competition, from a political standpoint, capitalism, we inherently, human beings in the way that we are today, we're trying to compete with each other for positions in the hierarchy ultimately.
Well, I think it's insecurity, it's feelings of inadequacy that drive this motivation to sort of level up each other, sort of like surpass each other. That's it. It's greed and insecurity.
I think I would agree that in the West it would probably come down to insecurity. I think or in developed countries it comes down to insecurity, because once you've got your food, your water, your shelter, your relationships, your family, your friends, everything else that you need comes down to a point of, well, somebody else has this, so I'm gonna, you're leveling up, because in reality, the way that most of the things that we consume, most of the things we consume in this way aren't really essential. They're not needs. Like, you wouldn't die without them. Food, I think community, like relationships, I think people can, that is a need. I don't think you necessarily need to you necessarily need to travel, go on holiday, buy nice cars, build skyscrapers, have a yacht, and I think part of the problem now is that people have such a elevated opinion of what their needs are, that they don't realize that actually they don't need a lot of what they have either. I mean, you could say a yacht, flying on holiday, but actually, most of the things that I have, like the laptop that I'm talking to you from, like from a needs perspective, the only reason that we have it's not really a need, because I'm using this to communicate with you, but actually there are maybe like 2,000 people who live on my block of houses that I've never spoken to, and if I want to communicate with people, why don't I go and talk to those people?
On the one hand, yeah, but if the marginal value that you can create with this tool, the laptop, and how that could positively change the world, then we need to factor that in also. But yeah, what I wanted to say there is what's happening is like a societal phenomenon of dissociation, where the brain is thinking thoughts that the body is not producing. So people are thinking, I need this car, I need this promotion, I need this career, I need XYZ, but the body doesn't need it. So there's a clear the body and the mind are out of sync, basically. People don't know, I think that the level of knowledge on human life, human needs, human biology, human structure is so rudimentary nowadays. And I'm not saying I'm not trying to be sort of supercilious and like saying I'm superior or anything. But I mean, I've looked into it a little bit, I think, and I've gotten a bit of understanding. And if you understand the, like, dude, like, I'm not really religious or anything, but like, read the freaking Bible, man. It's a self-help book. It'll like, it's essentially a self-help book, which is a description of your nature. But people have, thrown it out of the window to think it's sort of some sort of outdated, oppressive like scripture that somebody pulled out of there.
It's
like,
not bullshit.
Exactly.
It's not bullshit. I completely disagree with people who think that the Bible is just a useless piece of text. I haven't read it myself. I'd like to think that I'm familiar with many of the teachings of the Bible, because ultimately, in society, at least, if you go back to if you look at a lot of our laws and a lot of our values, even though in the UK, for instance, we might, even though in European countries we don't exist in religious countries anymore, we exist in countries with a moral and legal framework originally established by the Bible. And so you can't disagree with the teachings of the Bible in that way, with all the teachings of the Bible, but then agree with the laws and the moral decisions made in your country because they're intertwined. You went a bit deeper. I feel like the Bible comment was quite a surface level comment, and you were going a bit deeper before you brought the Bible up. So yes,
that's what I mean with the psychology.
Yeah.
It's the problem. I think. I mean, I'm really no expert on sort of climate change or anything. But what I observe is, or the hypothesis I have is, it's all just this turmoil, this suboptimal existence or way of life that is causing all of this. Like, it's like a low level of consciousness, of awareness of what's really going on and how one affects the one's surroundings. It's really sort of just like based.
Yeah, I think that's a really great point. By extension of thinking that you need all of these external inputs to be happy, you're completely missing. People are missing the idea that happiness is kind of a choice that you make yourself in your own head. Once you've got some of these basic needs met, but it's from a position of ignorance and not understanding how the mind works, what the mind actually wants, understanding psychology. It's because we don't teach those things, and those ideas don't seem to be respected in our culture anymore, that people are pursuing things to make themselves happy, and then when they're not happy, they're confused as to why that it's happening. Maybe I feel like this is quite a cliche thing to say if you're aware of like the minimalism community or like essentialism, but the idea that you could buy something that it wouldn't make you happier, like what? Like, how is that? Or the idea that you could want something and believe in your heart that you wanted something, then get it and not feel any better for it, because we're so flooded with external inputs that we're not even sure we're not sure what we want anymore, because so much of what we want is information fed to us. Right.
Yes.
Right.
Like, totally. And what I mean with this low level of consciousness relates to what you just said. People aren't reflecting. All you need to do is buy something kind of nice. Buy yourself like a semi-expensive piece of clothing. Buy it, use it, see how it makes you feel, and for how long it makes you feel like that. It's all you need to do. You don't need to crack the lottery to get a grasp of how money really won't make you happy. And that's why it's like this low level of consciousness. People aren't reflecting, and like what you said, is people are sort of overstimulated with external information. They can't listen. They're not listening to the information or the feedback that's coming from within in response to this information. And I don't know. I think I'm unrepresentative of my age group, and maybe you are also, but like I try to listen to myself, and I reduce the amount of, I don't have Instagram, for example, and I only go on Facebook on Wednesdays and Saturdays after 12 o'clock. Stuff like that. But like, yeah, like one just needs to reflect.
Yes. I would say that it's life's about habits. Like how you achieve what you want in life is about habits, and you are the sum total of the habits that you have. The way you behave is the sum total of your habits. And I think a lot of people, especially myself, have habits that they didn't make a choice. They didn't choose. It wasn't like a conscious choice. They kind of just picked up and they kept doing. Every time I open Safari, immediately opening Facebook just to check my news feed, and all of the chaos and information and overstimulation that comes with doing that. I think and like you said, people lack mindfulness, the time to reflect, and we're so used to filling our empty moments with distractions that you don't even realize that you're doing it. I've realized that for me, when I listen to my music walking around the house, that I'm trying to distract myself from my thoughts. If I've got music on in the shower, I'm attacking music first, but then I'll go into the others. If I have my headphones in while I'm on public transport or going to Yumbo, I'm distracted. I'm taking myself out of a mindful state. While you're doing sport, Facebook, watching YouTube videos in your breaks instead of just, I remember Nick mentioned this during your first episode, the idea that during a break of a lecture or a break at work, you would just like look at your phone and pretend that's a break, when actually you just added more stimulation, more chaos, more confusion. And so for me, my way of acting upon that in no small part has been being mindful of what I'm actually doing, being mindful of when I'm not giving myself the opportunity to be mindful. So trying to make a point to go for walks on my own, without my phone, without my headphones, and just walk with no plan, but just to think and let my thoughts work around. And I find that sometimes when I think I'm having a bad day, if I spend some time without my music, without my phone, without my external inputs, it gives me that opportunity to reflect and say, well, actually, am I having a bad day? Like, what's going on here? Is this really that bad? Is it just me framing it as bad? All of these desires and wishing things were better, or when your brain is muddled, confused by all of this stimulation, you don't know how to deal with those things or form a healthy response to them. And when you don't have that over information, all of a sudden your brain can act rationally again. So I completely agree with you there, that we need more mindfulness in every aspect of our life, that for like literally every reason, I would say.
Because there's so much, like, we really don't understand ourselves very well, like our own nature. We're so like we just don't really get it, what's going on with ourselves. And if you're not listening, it's just going to make it a lot harder. And the thing with music, listening to music, dude, I'm really guilty of that. I listen to too much music, straight up. And I notice actually something really interesting. Okay, I've never told this to anybody actually, but when I stalk people, on Facebook, for example, I tend to put music on because I feel like I'm being judged by it, by the people. I'm like comparing myself to them, and I want to drown the thought of like me comparing them, the insecurity, with music.
That's strong. Yeah.
Yeah, I
That's
think.
quite deep, man.
Pardon?
That's quite deep.
Yeah, it's like the music thing's pretty bad actually. Like I listen to way too much actually, for sure, and it's definitely just to silence the darkness. And
Yeah.
but generally, the whole stimulation thing is people gravitate towards overstimulation also because turning it off would entail pain and so discomfort, let's say, because you need to. It's like you have a room filled with little monsters sort of smashing stuff and like rampage on a rampage, and you don't want to look inside, and when you turn on the music you close the door, but you know they're in that room and you live in that room basically. You need to like organize it and get it straight, and there's only
Yeah.
one way in it. There's only one way through. Like you've got to turn the music off.
I had an interesting realization in a similar vein, that I had this pattern where when I was struggling with my work, I would think about food. And it wasn't because I was hungry. It was because I was using the foods to give me dopamine because I wasn't getting enough from my work. And this got to the point where I kind of developed a bit of a sugar addiction, like where I would eat sweets whenever I was struggling with my work just to make myself feel better. And it took me taking a step back to go, you know, I'm actually I'm using the food to compensate for my lack of fulfillment with my work, but it's not actually solving the problem. It's like I'm putting the food in front of the I'm layering this over the top so I can briefly forget about this struggle. But actually, like with your thoughts, the only way to deal with them in the long term is to tackle those thoughts. To like, if you've got work that you need to do, it's not going to go away. You've got to do the work, or you've got to reframe it so it's not so difficult. You've got to break it down so it's manageable. And it's so easy to try and just escape from that, you know. And I think escaping sometimes is a healthy thing to do. I don't think it's a good idea all the time to be. I think it's very hard. I don't want to say healthy. I think it's very hard to always sit with your emotions. I noticed that a few weeks ago I was having a very stressful time. I was feeling anxious to the point of like shaking, to the point of like being like I had physical anxiety, and listening to music really helped me because it gave me a bit of it took the edge off. And I noticed that in the way that other people might drink to take the edge off, you know. And it's kind of the same thing that we're talking about. I'm masking the feelings because I can't deal with them right now. But that's not a box that you want to live in. No way.
It's like a sedative.
Yeah.
Sedative for the moment, which is good, or else you'll collapse. But it's nothing for the long term, essentially.
Yeah.
And I can definitely. It's like when you're trying to work on an assignment this is the killer combination: boring and cognitively demanding. If it's like difficult and really boring, you're just like dry within and you want some stimulation. You're like, give me something. And I think I didn't have it with food like you did. I had it with other stuff, which I don't do. I mean, I had it with pornography essentially. I don't do that anymore, thankfully, but that was sort of my my escape a bit. Damn, dude, we like covered a lot. Dude, that was
Yeah.
so awesome.
I didn't expect anything else, Henry.
What do you mean?
I was expecting that we'd do this multifaceted, span all of these topics. It was what I was hoping for. So I'm
Dope.
glad that we had that conversation.
Same, man. Like, I really appreciate your openness. Like, there's something very mature about it. You're unapologetically kind of yourself, and that's really, I look up to that. It's very refreshing. You have that vibe. I don't know. I'm not trying to like be slimy or anything, but
No. I would caveat that, like, while there are things that I've talked about here, there are things that I've deliberately not discussed, and I think that the sorts of things I think that when there are some, it's okay to do that sometimes. There are when you tell somebody something and you feel a bit dirty after you said it because you know that you shouldn't have. You kind of like gave into it. Those are the sorts of things that I keep to myself. But yeah, I ultimately I was, yeah. I don't know where that fits in. I appreciate that you recognize that I am actually, for the large part, being authentic, and I'd certainly take it as a compliment that people see me that way, and for the most part that is true. I don't want to give this appearance that I'm carelessly authentic in one dimension, or that I'm not, or that I'm actually inauthentic in that I'm pretending to be authentic and not being.
No, dude, I don't like.
Yeah.
I get you. I think as in, you're giving the effort to try and speak truthfully and honestly, but of course we can't reveal everything, and like you don't want to either. And but just the intention to be transparent, I think I really appreciate that. That's
yeah. Thanks, man. You too. Cool. I would also like to add to your last comment that ditching pornography is really important, and that I'm glad that you did it, and it's something that I've been doing dropping as well. And I think, obviously this is your channel, so I think in ways there's a lot of impetus on you for you to guide the way in terms of openness, but I think you should give yourself, you should appreciate yourself as well for taking that risk.
Thanks.
Because a lot goes in, you're putting a lot of yourself out there, and I think that's important to do, but it's inherently a bit risky, I
have this idea that I've been playing with. I mean, we'll wrap up now, but when you speak the truth, you have nowhere to hide or run, and that must mean by default you're where you're supposed to be. I've been trying to this thing about speaking the truth makes you untouchable in some sense. I think there's some religious thing behind it, but I'm still trying to figure that out. But yeah,
it's really cool.
Jack, dude, thanks so much for this talk. I definitely want to talk to you again on this channel sometime in the future. And we covered a lot.
Yeah,
a lot of open stuff. Is there anything else you want to say?
No, Henry, it's been an absolute pleasure.
Awesome.
Look, hopefully I'll speak to you soon. Yeah. Take care, mate.
Okay. Well, thanks everybody for watching. I hope you enjoyed the episode. I'll see you. Bye.